Hi guys, this is Angela and welcome to my channel. This video is intended for anyone who has purchased the art kit and would like to hear more about my thought process as well as choices drawing with acrylic markers. If you're interested in my drawing process in real-time speed as well as my thought process, please stick around as well. I started with a radial gradient of the lantern, starting from white in the center, blending outwards with yellow, bright yellow and red. I'm using extra fine tip black to adding the bottom detail. Instead of a flat black shape, I added some reflected light coming from the left side. This will help separate the top and the bottom black shapes, and also add more volume and realism to the lantern. I'm using brown, bright yellow and red to adding the thin lines on the lantern. I want to make sure the color I'm using is darker than the gradient underneath. You might notice me switching to a lighter color for area that's closer to the light source. You probably see me switching between marker thickness a lot in my drawing process videos, and that's something I kind of want to bring up for anyone who have purchased the art kit. Because I only could include 15 markers, I had to go with what I think are the most versatile options. If you already own acrylic markers, it will actually come in really handy to have those additional options. But if you don't, and you only have the 15 markers in the art kit, I still think you can recreate most of these drawings with no problem, as long as you pay attention to line weight and have patience when you're building in a bigger block with thinner pen. That will be really important. When it comes to creating clean edges, especially on a small shape, I always use extra fine tip markers. Before adding the thick black lettering on the lantern, I'm using red to create a thicker bottom layer that will look like the stroke around the lettering. In real-time speed, you can really tell how careful I am when I'm writing lettering on a shape. Especially when there is a gradient underneath, I really don't want to mess up because it will be really hard to recreate the gradient. So I try to go for really small and careful strokes instead of really courageous and bold strokes. If you are unfamiliar with the letter you are writing, it might be better to practice on a separate piece of paper first. So while that layer of red is drying, I'm adding some additional detail on the left. I always try to wait until one layer is dry before adding an additional layer on top. So I'm working on these horizontal lines spaced out evenly, wrapping around the lantern. In reality, they should stretch out from the left side completely to the right side. But because I don't want to complicate a small drawing, I'm going to slowly decrease the length of the stroke as well as switch to a lighter marker. This way it will look less flat and less crowded. I use this technique often. For example, when I'm depicting the tiles on a roof, I won't actually outline every single tile, but I will indicate a few to give the viewer the illusion that they're seeing all of the tiles. Finally, I'm using black to adding the final lettering on the lantern. You can see that I break up a lot of my lines. I don't try to finish everything with just one stroke. I try to make sure I get the best curves and the best edges by doing smaller strokes. I think what makes a drawing or a painting good is the intentional strokes. When you're not in control of your marker, you tend to make really loose and uncontrolled lines. And that's when a painting can start looking messy. So finally, I'm using brown to draw the string that's holding up the lantern. And looking at this lantern as it's completed, I'm going back in to fix some details here and there. When you finish a drawing, it's always helpful if you just stand back and evaluate if there's anything missing or anything that needs a bit more work. So now moving on to the smaller lanterns. I'm leaving the center white and using yellow to circle the area around it. I find the white of the paper to be much brighter than my white marker. It could be because my white marker has already been diluted with other colors, so I try to utilize the white of the paper as much as I can. Switching between yellow and white, I'm trying my best to create a radial gradient. The texture and the quality of paper that you're working on really affects the performance of acrylic markers, especially when it comes to blending and creating a gradient. Choosing the right paper will make your drawing experience much more enjoyable. And add in bright yellow around the outer edge. Bright yellow is actually very close to orange. So I did the same radial gradient for the 3 other lanterns, as well as adding in an outline. I think with smaller objects, adding in an outline really helps with creating volume. Same as the first lantern, I used red for the first layer of lettering. And once it's dry, I finished it with black. I tend to save the use of black last because even though you can layer light on dark with acrylic markers, it's still really hard to correct a black shape using a lighter shape. I try to always start with the lightest color and then layer darker shapes and strokes on top. I think it's really important to know how many layers you want and plan them out carefully so you can achieve the cleanest edges around the overlapping areas. So that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful for some of you, and for those of you who will be receiving the art kit soon, I really hope you will enjoy doing those homework pages. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on my YouTube channel or Instagram.